you stamp on the second thing?
No, there's one stamp for the time.
Lizzie, did you tell him to do like 7 page for vocab this year?
No. But they all think because they're crazy. Okay, well, something that came up yesterday is apparently a lot of people have no idea what's going on down below over there. I run this thing called the Green Lab, which is a space where students do sustainability project stuff related to food. The reason it's important to you, if it's important to you at all, is that at the end of this class, you might be like, yo, what else can we do? And I'd be like, oh, well, you can take my other class, which is called Small Scale Food Production. I know you're trying to help, but next time just tell them to shut up. Small Scale Food Production in Period 0, where students don't have like textbooks or exams or any of that. There's like no lecture, really like lecture. And the whole point is we just run a space that has all these neat sustainable food projects. So we have like 3,500 square feet of row crops. We have a small orchard that in phase 3 we're going to expand and make the bigger orchard as well. We have seed-to-seed food production, so we start seeds that we collected to grow food and keep some of that food growing until it's set seed so we can plant that again in the future. We start all of our own seedlings and make our own transplants, and kids take stuff home. The stuff that we collect goes to the cafeteria or to my students' families. We have bees, chickens, catfish, hydroponics, aquaponics. We're going to start breeding crickets to make like a protein-rich feed for our chickens and our fish. Students make their own compost on campus from waste that we gather on campus. And the whole point is just for kids to like have actual physical experience with things that are hopefully a little bit more sustainable than the alternatives. And we sort of figure out what we mean by that, and like how much are we actually putting in and how much are we actually getting out, and how does this really compare to other choices. Thing is, I've been doing that for like 15 years, like cobbling together a program down there in a space that was like leftover garbage and like not built legally and had like homeless people using it all the time because Santa Barbara's a tough place to be homeless. And then we had to demo it because it wasn't really safe for my students. So then I spent like 2 years raising $986,000. So that last year I could not have my class so I could build that thing. And $1 million later, booyah. And now I've got the option to like build a program all really nice and like spiffy and like do it right the first time. And I'm super psyched. But I need so much help. And I'm already working 20% overtime, and I already have 2 other jobs, and I already have a lot to worry about, trying to support my wife, and, we have, like, I'm building a house right now, I'm remodeling a house, and, like, still want to fish every now and then, and I got to pay attention to my freaking kids, because now they're going to forget who I am. So I really need a lot of help from parents, and a lot of your parents are like, oh, we like the environmental thing, and my kids really like it in your class. What can we do? And I'm like, well, for my class, I just need money. Because for this class, like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I don't really need a lot of other input. Like, it's just buying the stuff that we use up every year. So I don't know, $3 to $5 grand a year I got to spend to keep the class running. That's it. But for that one, I need everything. That's what we're talking about with, like, the welding and, like, picking up manure and stuff, like wood. I need so much help down there. So all your parents were like, well, how can I help you with that? And I'm like, oh, I got you. Like, look, you just text at Green Lab to 81010. And all your parents were like, how do you spell at? And I'm like, no, the little thing. And they're like the dollar sign? I'm like, no, the at. And they're like, where is that on my telephone? And I'm like, oh, God. And they're like, at space, green, space lab. I'm like, no spaces. So where do I put the space? I'm like, you don't put a space. And they're like, so what's the phone number again? And I'm like, 81010. And I was like, that's not a phone number. And I'm like, okay, I know. It's not like a phone number. It's this thing called Remind.com. It's like a service on the internet. She's like, oh, I use Safari? And I'm like, oh, God. And then the bell rang and everybody laughed. I'm not asking you to do anything, but if your parents are down, you could help them because you all speak the tech thing. So if you want, just scribble this on a paper in case your parents suck at technology. They text a single no-space word at Green Lab to 81010.
And what function does that serve?
Have you ever heard of Remind.com?
No.
It's a thing where I can send out a message, everybody gets it as a text, but when they respond, it's not a group, they all just respond to me. So if I need trash can, everybody who signed up gets a single text message that says, hey, it's Jose, I could really use a trash can, if you can help me, let me know. And then when they respond, everybody else doesn't see it. So if you're not into it, you just ignore it. If you get tired of it, you can unsubscribe. But I just send out text when we need help. We need help building programs. We've got to build a lecture series. I always need money. We need help with jobs. Like I need somebody to build me little wooden tool racks and stuff like that. Any other questions? Sorry. 2.1 vocab. Vocab on 2.1. We might have already done that. Vocab on 2.1. There was so much vocab. No vocab on 2.1?
Trophic level.
Trophic level means where you are in a food chain. Those are trophic levels, like energy levels. Like, do you produce the energy? Are you the first one to consume the energy? Or are you the second level to consume the energy? What else? Habitat engineer species and physical engineer species are basically the same thing. If you want to play it safe, you just call it an engineer species and you're cool. But heads up. There are some species which engineer the entire habitat, like a beaver makes the pond. And there are some species, it might be a little louder if you just bang it on the desk over and over, I don't know. And then there are some species that just affect one physical feature of their environment, like the way the prairie dog makes the prairie more absorbent of rainwater. So they're all engineered species, that's a safe thing, but there's a subtle distinction between those that do like a three-dimensional habitat build and those that just affect a single physical property. Like how the plants affect the temperature of the water, that's physically, the physical feature is the water temperature. So plants don't build the stream. They're not habitat engineered species. They're physical engineers. They affect the temperature of the water. Okay, what else? Yes?
Can you give an example of a watershed?
Sure, I can give you all sorts of examples. Look, there's a place called the Continental Divide. It's this ridge of mountains that runs that way. And when you're standing on top of that mountain ridge, you can face east and urinate downhill, and that will flow eventually into the Atlantic Ocean. So we call that the Atlantic watershed. Any place where your pee washes away to the Atlantic is shedding water to a common drain, like the Atlantic Ocean. Okay? And then, if you just shift your hips to the west, then you could also, from that exact same spot, pee into a separate ocean. Go ahead, ask me.
Have you done it?
Yes, I have. So that's called the continental divide because it divides the continents into two separate watersheds. They're like this. The Atlantic watershed and the Pacific watershed. More details. Canadian Atlantic, Mexican Atlantic, U.S. Atlantic, and the North American Atlantic watershed. Because there's Canada's land that goes to the Atlantic, and there's Mexico's land that goes to the Atlantic, and so on. Here's another one. All this dirt drains to the Pacific Ocean. But everything that falls in there first drains to San Francisco Bay before the ocean. So watch this. The Pacific watershed includes the U.S. Pacific watershed, includes the San Francisco Bay watershed. And within the San Francisco Bay watershed, there's like the Tuolumne River watershed, because that flows into the Tuolumne River. That's part of the San Joaquin watershed, because that all flows to the San Joaquin River. And that's part of the San Francisco, which is part of the river. So bigger watersheds can have smaller watersheds inside of them. Because they all flow to one small body of water before that flows to the bigger body of water. ¿Qué más? Yeah?
This is for 2.2, but...
Nope.
Not there yet.
Hold your horses. Whoa, Nelly. Okay, on 2.1? Yes?
The habitat or oh wait, you said that
Yep.
the predator effect.
Predators maintain species diversity by limiting competitive exclusion. They keep one species from overwhelming the losers. You don't want a winner to run away with the ecosystem because sooner or later, environment's going to shift and those losers are important. Diversity overall is a good thing. So if there's like 5 species that all want to grow on the same rocks, we don't want one of them to take over the whole rock. That's bad because it lowers diversity. That one species could go extinct and there's nothing there. So predators, it turns out, they keep a lot of species around by holding back whoever's winning the most. It's called predator pressure.
So effective pressure.
Sort of, yeah. The predator pressure leads to the predator effect. Predator effect describes total diversity. Predator pressure is just the fact that predators eat whatever's most common. What else?
Open/closed systems.
What?
Open/closed systems.
No system is truly open or truly closed. Some are just more open and some are more closed. The Earth is pretty closed, but of course we get sunlight, space dust, and meteors. The ocean is pretty open, but you know, like birds don't usually end up in the ocean, so it's kind of closed to birds. So you can have ones that are more open, ones that are more closed. It's not perfect one to the other. What else? Last call for 2.1 vocab. What about study goals 1 through 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes?
Can you go over the human paradox for number 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I know a lot about this because coincidentally, I know a lot about Lyme's disease because coincidentally, my old friend Kat Keenan, her sister was the first case, I believe, of Lyme's disease. They named the disease after their hometown of Lyme, Connecticut. And Lyme disease super sucks, and if you don't get it early enough, you live with pretty debilitating symptoms for your whole life. So it would be nice if we didn't have Lyme's disease, but it's kind of tough to control it because it's spread by ticks. And like if you have a forest surrounding your city, it's really tough to get rid of all the ticks because they're really small and they're really tough and they lay a lot of eggs and you can kill the eggs but you can't kill the adults. You can kill the adults, you can't kill the eggs, you can't fumigate the whole system. So, if you don't want Lyme's disease, can't kill the ticks, good news, you can kill all the mice. At the forest-wide level, it's actually not that difficult. You can poison them, or, even simpler, you can make these traps that bait, and then you have like a huge barrel full of dead mice. Because you can electrocute them, or you can drown them, or you can just trap them and starve. So hooray! We get rid of all the Lyme's disease, right? By killing all the mice that carry the ticks? Not a good idea, because apparently the mice are the only thing that eats the beetle, that has the worm, that has the grub, and that grub eats the acorns, and if all the acorns get eaten, then the forest doesn't renew itself because trees stop growing. So here's the paradox. If you like trees, you got to accept Lyme's disease, because you can't get rid of Lyme's disease without killing off all the trees. Paradox. Like, I hate having a job, I just want to go fishing. But I can't go fishing if I don't have a job because it makes money to go fishing. Paradox. What else? Nothing else in 1 to 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No? Cool, because I did want to talk about number 6, which is negative and positive feedback. How many of you remember positive feedback loops from AP Biology or Biology or something like that? Hi. I'm really glad that's happening in another class. Good news. For those of you that have never heard of this thing, this is not like personal feedback, like words. It's not like, I really like your hat, and like, oh, those are nice glasses. Or like, oh, I really like your sweater. That's positive feedback in the process, right? Like compliments. And there's like negative feedback, right? Like, dude, that's the dorkiest hat I've ever seen. I hate your glasses. It's dumb. Like, this is a stupid sweater. Those are like insults, right? Negative feedback. Like, that guy, he's telling me things I didn't want to hear because they're negative. Heads up. In science, it's not good or bad. It's not compliment insult. It's about how the system responds to input. Watch. Positive feedback is when the input to a system creates more input to the system. So I do some sit-ups. My wife says, ooh, you're looking fly. And I'm like, I like that, so I do more sit-ups. You can see I don't do sit-ups, right? Okay. In nature, like fire gives off heat, which dries out trees, which makes more fire, which makes more heat, which dries out more trees, which helps the fire spread, which makes more heat and dries out more trees, which allows more fire to spread to make more heat to dry out more. You can see how this is just sort of like a snowball effect, where the output makes more of the input, that makes more of the output, that makes more of the input. Snowball effect? Okay. Positive feedback. And negative feedback is when the output actually is like a regulating force, like it prevents more of the system. So I eat a bunch of ice cream, and my wife says, ooh, you're sprouting a bit of a muffin, aren't you? I go, oh. So then I'm going to stop eating ice cream. Yes? These make sense? Want to ask me about any of these? Okay, it should definitely be in your notes for positive and negative feedback that this is about system response. We're talking about a system and how it responds to input. What about 7, 8, 9, or 10?
8.
8? What is 8?
How long it takes a human population to double at like a 2.3% increase.
How long it takes for the what?
It's the rule of 70.
Oh, the rule of 70 stuff. Sure, okay, I got you, fam. We can do this. How many of you understand the basic concept of a savings account? When you put money into a bank, does that stay the same amount of money when you put it in a savings account? Why not? Interest? What is interest? Money that the bank gives you when you keep it in there longer and longer? What? What is interest? Wow, okay. It is a percentage, yes. And what about that percentage? Where does that come from?
Your lump sum.
What about that lump sum? This is adorbs. I don't know how a checking account works.
Like a percent of the money you put in, just add it each year. Like if you have like 1.5% interest, it's like 1% the money that's added each year.
Yeah, by whom?
Okay.
The bank. They give you more money. That's right. They say if you keep your money here, we'll give you more money. Well, you don't realize that they're spending your money to make more money, and so they give you a bit of it. So watch. You put in 100, and at 5%, after 1 year, you have $105. How many of you can jive with this? Like, yeah, that kind of fits my understanding of a savings account. I guess this is kind of what, yeah, the percentage and the interest and the compounding. Okay. Now, how do we calculate the time it takes for that money to double? Because the money's going to keep growing, so sooner or later you have $200, right? How long is it going to take that $200? What? 20 years? It would take 20 years if they gave you $5 a year. But do they give you $5 a year, or do they give you 5% of your total value?
5%, so that would be 5%.
So next year it's 5% of 105, which is actually $5.25 or something, right? And the year after that you got $110.25. So they give 5% of that. Now we're talking like $5.50. So every year they don't give you the same amount. It's not 555. It's 5 plus 525 plus 550 or something. How many of you roughly understand this compounding interest concept? So watch this. You could do this whole thing and keep going until you get to 200, right? How many of you think you could probably do that now if I gave you a calculator and you calculated 5% at a time? Here's a cool trick though. Watch. It'll take 14 years for your money to double. Because there's this thing called the rule of 70. Are there any extreme math dorks here? Come on, extreme math dorks? Who's the math dorkiest person here? Are you raising your hand or are you just stretching? Oh. Who's the most extreme math dorkiest person here?
Who's in your head now?
Yeah, you are ahead.
Are you in
Okay, how about this?
Yeah.
Has anybody ever heard, yeah, maybe none of you are math dorks, fine. Anybody ever heard of PERT?
Yeah.
P-I equals P-O to the E-R-T?
No.
Okay, so those of you who have, if you try to figure out doubling time, you'd be wanting to solve for t, where 2p equals p to the ERT. And so you'd have to bring down that exponent, so you would be doing like a natural log, because it's e is the exponent. And if you do that, math nerds, you end up with roughly doubling time is 70 over growth rate. The rest of you, if you don't understand what I just said, you don't need to. I just wanted to show the math nerds that there's a reason for this. Bro, I know it's distracting, but you're too distracted. Quit it. Okay. Where 70 divided by the growth rate written as a percentage will tell you the time it takes for your money to double. So look, 70 divided by the growth rate, which we said was 5% of this bank, means that in 14 years, you'll have $200. In other words, you go from 100 to 200 at 5% in 14 years. That's called the rule of 70. If it had said 10%, it would be 7 years. And crazy news flash, notice that I'm not making that into a decimal because it's just written as a percent. See how I said written as a percent right there? Written as a percent. And you know, human population grows. So everybody's like, oh, we got 7.4 billion. Well, how long until we have like 14.8 billion? Okay, well, you just figure out the population growth rate, which right now is 2.3%. And you can 70 divided by 2.3 in your lifetime, you're going to see 14 point whatever billion humans. Assuming our percentage stays the same, that's how long it takes to double. College Board will ask you more than once to figure out how long it takes to double things. So you got to know this. It's on every AP test, and you're not allowed to use a calculator, so there's no other way to do it except 70 divided by the percentage. How you quadruple is like this. How long is it going to take to get to 400? How long is it going to take to get to $400? If I start with $100, how long does it take to get to 400? I doubled in 14 years, right? We already agree on that, it's 5%? How long to get 400? What? 36? No.
Would you change the 70?
21.
No.
21.
21?
Yeah.
Because that's a doubling time plus a doubling time, not exactly?
No, I didn't say.
What?
Also,
Hey, how about this? I'll give you a hint. That's not like on every AP test. So y'all can zone out, that's fine by me. But here comes like the one time I'm going to do this, so heads up. 100 at 5% is 14 years because of the rule of 70. 70 divided by 5 is 14. Doubling time. That's how long it takes to double. Doubling time. The time it takes to double.
So 28.
It takes one doubling time to double your 100 to 200. And then how long does it take to go from 200 to 400? Well, that's another doubling.
Yeah, I did 3, that's fine.
Right. Actually, you did 3 of 7s. Or something. 42 would be 3. 14. Yeah, 14 times 3, 42. But anyway. Look, 14 to double, and then you're going to double it one more time, and that's how you get it to 400. That's it. It's 2 doubling times. That's how you quadruple it. And then to octuple is 1 more doubling time, because 400 doubled is 800. So you octuple your wealth in 42 years. Yeah.
Is there any exception to environmental unity?
Hold on. Are we all done with this? Yeah, there's exceptions to environmental unity, because not everything is connected to everything. The number of fleas in China doesn't affect the weight of a rock at my house. So there are exceptions. But the point of environmental unity is that there's a lot of connections that are surprising and not obvious. Yes? Were you raising your hand?
Oh yeah, I was going to ask if the percentage is constantly increasing, then how is it still 14 years?
Because the amount per year is increasing, but the percentage is not. So this is exactly where students struggle to speak math, and I can help you because I understand what you're doing. It's okay, I got you. Watch. In these 14 years, how much total dollar bills did you add in your account? In 14 years, you went from 100 to 200. How many dollars were added? $100 added, right? Do we agree?
Yes.
So over 14 years, you added $100, right? Now, in these 14 years, that's going to be the same amount of time.
Oh, so it's winning.
How many dollars are you adding now? Oh, so look at the angle of my growth, right? In the next 14 years, that's going to be the exact same unit time. But if we wait another 14 years, how much money are you going to be adding? Another 400, because you're going to double, right? That's going to take you up to 800. So now you're going to go like this. It's called exponential growth. Because you're growing at the same fixed percentage, which gives you the same unit time to double, but it's a non-linear system. Because you're not adding the same amount per year, you're growing at the same percentage, and the same percentage of a bigger number is more growth. So it gets steeper over time. Anybody else on anything in assignment 2.1? We got a little unity, we got a little exponential, linear, nonlinear, rule of 70 crap. We got a little quadruple octuple. We're good? 2.2 vocab. Vocab. Yeah? Upwelling is this thing where water comes up from the bottom of the ocean because of offshore wind. It's like this. Baby Jesus makes angry cloud. Angry cloud makes the wind blow. If the wind is blowing offshore, like off of the shore to the ocean, then that's going to push the surface water away. You know, wind makes current. People who Shaka know that. Windy up there, swell coming from there. So, wind, ocean current, water's moving that way. Is that going to gradually push the ocean out away from the coastline until you expose the Marianas Trench or whatever? Because water likes to level itself. So here's how it works. It's like spinning a wheel. When you push water away, water has to replace it from somewhere, and that wells up from the depth. Upwelling, water wells up. And that's very, very important. Critically important. Because here's a fact about the earth that all of you need to know. Colder water holds more nutrients. And the bottom of the ocean is cold, so where you have upwelling, you have more nutrients. And if there's more nutrients, there's more growth. And if there's more growth, there's more life. Better fishing. Yo, bro.
Doesn't it also hold more oxygen?
Which is a nutrient, yes, also, exactly. Offshore wind makes upwelling. Upwelling makes more life. Because there's more nutrients in the cold water. Which is why our ocean is one of the most productive systems on the planet. Here's a fun fact a lot of you don't know. Our coastline faces due south. We're looking at the equator when we look out to sea. That's not west. You all realize that, right? The little pinwheel at the end of the pier that has a compass. And you think you're going west, but you're actually walking to Mexico or whatever. See? But we have this ripping current that comes down from Alaska called the Pacific Current, and it splits off into California and the Humboldt Current. And right along here, please look at me, right there, that current comes heading south and takes the surface water of Santa Barbara away from the coast and drives constant upwelling in the middle of the channel to the surface waters. So we're not wind-driven upwelling in Santa Barbara. We don't even need wind. Just because the water comes ripping out from Point Conception and keeps heading to the south, it just pushes all of our surface water away, and that keeps drawing cold water up to the continental shelf. So this is one of the most productive regions of the ocean year-round on the planet. I'm obsessed with Santa Barbara. Like, if you could just pick any place and there was like nobody else around and nothing else to think about, you should probably just live here. Yep. All the high school kids don't want to go away to college. I'm just telling y'all, you won't find a better place to go to college than, unfortunately, the town where your parents live. You should make them go away. What else? vocab on 2.2?
Can you explain macronutrients and micronutrients?
Yeah, macronutrients are the ones we need in large volume. They're like the big stuff that it takes to keep life running. And micronutrients are the ones that you need in like trace volumes. If I take your steady body and I grind it up and I separate all that juice, like the bulk of that is going to be like hydrogen and carbon and nitrogen and oxygen and phosphorus and sulfur. Those are the macro. And you know, your little steady body probably has a teeny little tiny bit of like gold and like uranium, and that doesn't even matter because that's not even there on purpose, it's just leftover. And in between, there's a few little things that you need to stay alive, but you just need a little tiny bit, like boron. It takes a little tiny bit of boron to be steady, but not really a whole lot, so we call that a micronutrient. You get more than you need just from like eating a green vegetable once in your life. Next vocab question. Yes? Denitrification we'll do in the nitrogen cycle on Monday.
So it'd be dumb to ask about nitrogen fixation.
It's not dumb, I just won't answer it until Monday. It's smart to ask, so smart that I'm planning to answer it already, but another day. What else? The limiting factor is any factor which limits the growth of an organism or a population. So the height of corn is limited by nitrogen in soil. If you have very nitrogen-rich soil, you get very tall corn plants. But we say that nitrogen is a limiting factor to corn height. Does that make sense? A factor which limits the growth of an individual or population?
Is it like something that's also like required? Like, do you...
Yeah, I suppose so, because if it wasn't limiting, it would be irrelevant, so you wouldn't require it.
Okay.
Yep. So limiting suggests that it's required. Yes?
Would the death of those bears in Northern California be a limiting factor to the tree growth there?
Whoa. Yeah. We should probably, okay, how about this? Let me say this differently. The nutrients that you get by bear being present are a limiting factor to trees. Theoretically and technically, we could provide those nutrients some other means. Like I could buy a bunch of synthetic fertilizer or add compost or whatever to provide those same nutrients. So it's not that the bears themselves are the limiting factor, but the nutrients provided by the bears are indeed limiting to the growth of trees. Yes. Yes. I'm so ready to lecture right now. I see the finish line in sight. It's almost weekend. This time tomorrow, I'm going to be bouncing around on my boat, killing a bunch of fish.
What type of fish you go?
All sorts. 17-foot Arima.
How often do you get on it?
Not often enough. Her name is the Reveille.
Why did you name it that? Or is it just
I named it that because I was trying to find something that invoked the morning sunrise moment, like when the beautiful gray light of the AM. And I also had to rename it because the previous name was Sydney Jean, named after Sydney Jean, a student. And it just felt horrible to like tell her father, like, "Oh, dude, I had a great weekend with Sydney Jean." And I was like, "Oh man, that's changed her. Can't be doing that." Poor Sydney. Womp womp. Hey kids, I got an idea. You know you can protect your phones by not leaving them on your desk because you know it's school time. Damn. Okay, what about study goals? Everything from 11 to 16 is just me asking permission to continue with a science class. Like, are you okay with the hydrology terms? And are you okay with the geology terms? And are you okay with all this, like, geophysical cycling stuff? Yeah.
Number 12, like about the biogeochemical cycle.
Huh?
I couldn't find like the second part of the question.
Like how much time you spent in each?
Yeah.
That makes sense, because it never tells you an exact time.
Yeah.
I never.
It's just relative to the others. Like, some are fast and some are slow.
So it doesn't.
It's not a specific
Say
year.
fast, or you say slow.
Right, it's faster or slower instead of 13 or 27. It's just faster or slower. Atmospheric cycling is very fast. Lithospheric cycling is very slow, because once you've made a rock, it's probably going to stay a rock for about 300 million years on average. Yo,
Number 16.
is that a question?
Yeah,
What is your question?
what, 16?
16 is like 15 and then another one. Like that. What's like that?
I mean, the question 16, I had no idea what to even be looking for.
You got the break?
We're supposed to like go over stuff or
I don't even have papers.
it did say.
Oh, was that the one where it's not obvious which diagram I'm referring to?
Yeah.
It just says there's an ultra copy trace.
Yeah.
That all the terminology.
I see.
All the terminology that connect to different boxes.
Like this. In figure 7.15 that referred, I mean, I'll make it more obvious next year. I understand what you're all saying, but
Bad stuff.
the previous study goal was like, do you understand all of this? And then in 16 it says, do you understand all the words that connect the boxes?
Oh.
So biological uptake is like when nutrients come from the non-living world into the living world. It's like absorption, that's uptake. And biological release is like when I breathe out CO2 and it becomes atmospheric CO2 that's leaving the biosphere.
I drew that diagram for 15
I didn't, I understand the question wasn't clear. It's not your fault. Oh my God, have a great sleazy weekend. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend on the Sydney.